You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, podcast number 249.4, our NFL Draft Recap with Codey Emerson and Will Rutherford.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengel.
Welcome, NFL fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report. I got with me today Will Rutherford of Elwood, Indiana, and Ball State University, but coming from Albuquerque, New Mexico today. That's how dedicated he is. And we got Codey Emerson, who's been on a few times, but making his NFL draft debut here today as we recap the NFL draft. Welcome, Codey. Welcome, Will. All right, well, let's talk about it, and we're going to just recap everything. I want to let everybody know real fast that on Tuesday morning we'll have our Colts report where we recap the Colts draft. So tune in for that. But this is just an entire draft recap. And, of course, we have to start with the biggest slide in NFL draft history. It was just freaking nuts. I have no idea what happened. Will, why did Shaddeur Sanders go in the 5th round?
I don't think teams liked what he brought to the table as far as his interviews. I've kind of seen reports coming out that like Brian Dable was really kind of disappointed with his lack of preparation, and I would imagine that if one coach is saying that was a problem that was probably going on with other organizations. I think that the bravado, I think, probably scares some people away. I don't want to say it's cockiness because there's a lot of athletes that showboat and do that. I think that turns some people away, and I think that you kind of saw what the NFL evaluates him. I don't think that they think he's that good, because if they thought he was that good, he would have been taken regardless of the issues.
Clearly, but I think that drops him to the 3rd round, not the 5th round. Gee whiz.
I was on record of saying when it was just talk with amongst friends and sports people that I didn't think he was a first-round quarterback. Granted, this draft class is far. We've heard from the experts who are doing the research. This is not obviously a great quarterback class to begin with. I didn't think he'd fall that far. No one did. I thought all right, he'll get picked up. I thought Cleveland, with a 33rd pick or whatever they had in that 2nd round, would jump on him. I really did. And I kind of agree with Will. It's one of those things of the word gets around. Teams talk. The GMs, coaches, they talk throughout the league. And if one coach kind of has that sense, then there's probably a lot of others who are they just don't want the head case that he led up to. And I'm sure he's a good kid. He's not that bad of a quarterback. He's not a 5th round talent quarterback.
Exactly. That's what I think. That's my point. At some point in this, guys, I started to say, the 49ers can use an upgraded quarterback. This guy could be an upgraded quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be. Could be. The 49ers, there were the Colts, for example. They took a worthless guy around later. You couldn't take a flyer on Shaddeur Sanders. Are you kidding me? And there were so many of those franchises that just could use a guy who might become that guy.
The Raiders were the team that I was looking at.
Right, and the Steelers.
The Steelers, too, at 21 in the 1st round, maybe you thought. I'm not a Shaddeur Sanders fan. I'm really not that much of a Deion Sanders fan either. But what really irked me about the whole situation was guys like Jalen Milroe, Dylan Gabriel, the other quarterbacks, which that makes Cleveland's pick of him even more weird.
Crazy.
And now that they have Dylan Gabriel and Shaddeur Sanders in there, those guys, I'm sorry, are not as good as he is. It's just that I guess the off the field stuff that teams were shying away from. So it's one of the biggest.
But Will is also right that they clearly didn't rate him as good a quarterback as most of us thought, because if they did, then they look past that stuff. But they clearly didn't. But I saw the video of his pro day, and man, I know it's just highlights, but he has some really good NFL qualities. And not to mention some incredible genetics. And I keep pointing this out, not just the athleticism of Deion Sanders, because he's clearly not the athlete that Deion was, but Deion was one of the smartest players in NFL history as well.
Yeah.
And if he would have trained to be a quarterback when he was 4 years old, we'd be talking about the greatest quarterback of all time, I think. That kind of athlete. So, yeah, that kind of smarts, that kind of it's not even just smarts, it's instinct and savvy. And you would think that some of that would come down to his son. And if it does, he's worth a flyer on a third round. I don't understand why the Colts weren't one of those teams, particularly the Lions, who are going to be looking for their next quarterback in the next few years. Don't start to think, hey, this could be our next guy if we get him in the right place, get him in the right system. I just don't understand the fifth round. I do understand the first two rounds. I don't understand the fifth round dropping that far.
I mean, I'm also, we got to stop with the Jared Goff slander. Detroit is not looking for a damn quarterback. He's 30 years old. They're not looking for a quarterback for 10 years if it goes well. They're not.
I'm talking about that point of the draft. You start to say, why not stash the guy? And if he starts to become good, we can trade him or whatever. But at that point, they've got a 30-year-old quarterback. You're already, if you're a franchise, thinking about the next quarterback.
I think that's mismanagement of draft. I think it's the same issue that Atlanta ran into last year. There's no way.
Most guys after the third round don't play in the NFL, Will.
I mean, I don't think that if you're a team even if you're a team with a quarterback like that, it's all about precedent. You don't want arguments in the room. You don't want questions. You want to be completely behind a guy from day one. Detroit completely behind Jared Goff. The Raiders completely behind Geno Smith. They don't want the sideshow that Shaddeur brings because it raises questions, it raises eyebrows, and teams don't like the drama. They don't want to deal with PR and media relations issues every
Cleveland
Tuesday.
does, apparently.
Now, Cleveland, you want to talk about just a bunch of bumbling dipshits. That's one of the worst drafts I've ever seen in my damn life. Just absolutely piss poor franchise management. And it's why they're terrible.
As he was falling down the draft, I kept saying, I hope he wins 9 Super Bowls now. I hope he proves everybody wrong. And then he landed with the Browns, and I was like, well, never mind. Yeah, he's going to be, his career's going to go down the drain because he's in Cleveland.
That quarterback room, we've all seen it now on Twitter or social media. It's the most hilarious quarterback. And to be quite, there's, the good old saying is, I think, if you have two or three starting quarterbacks, you don't have one. That's the good old saying, or it's something like that in the NFL. I'm assuming Flacco maybe is the starter. Pickett, someone's getting cut or traded. Like, you can't keep 4 or 5 quarterbacks on your roster. And
you can't even go to camp with 4, I don't think, like that.
Yeah, it's like, does Gabriel move on the practice squad, or does Cleveland's been a shit show for years, and like you said, Will, they just enjoy it. I don't think they enjoy it, but they always seem to be centered around controversy, drama, and
all the Ohio teams in the NFL.
They're right in the forefront of it again.
I do think that Gabriel's a little better than what people think. Gabriel had a really good college career. One of those that it fits the mold of kind of the recent success as far as being a 5th-year starter, going to a couple different programs and learning a new system where I think that he can play in Stefanski's offense. But to me, if you're Joe Flacco, you've got to just be absolutely pissed because you probably had the chance to go other places and be a starter at least for a year next year. And now, he's just. Joe Flacco's one of the better 32 quarterbacks I think in the league. With some of the people that are playing, he's 30th or 31st, but he's one of the top 32 without question. He put together 2 pretty good years. One really good year in Cleveland, in which he basically carried him to the playoffs.
This is going to be my next point about Cleveland is they've still got the best offensive line in the NFL. Maybe they've got the potential to get a quarterback if they're just steady to be around 500 team. And if they could get a good quarterback, that could be a pretty good team. We're not talking about a horrible team here.
You put Joe Flacco behind a good offensive line, and he'll eat.
Well,
I mean,
that's what he did
he
years
can
ago.
still sling the damn pill around. I mean, don't get it twisted. This guy's still got arm talent. He can't move worth a shit, but he can absolutely throw the ball. I mean, if you give him protection and give him time to make reads, he will push the ball down the field with Jerry Judy. I mean, I just think for him where he is at in his career, you bring in you trade a 6th round draft pick to bring Kenny Pickett in. A 6th round draft pick. Cleveland should never trade a pick ever. Because they need to take gambles as much as possible because it's the only hope that they ever have of being a successful NFL franchise.
All right, guys. Well, we have not talked at all about the draft since after the first round. So let's kind of recap what's been going on in the draft. Will, what's to you the biggest story of day 2, second, third round? Who had the best drafts? Who was the best pick off the top of your head? What made noise after the first round to you?
I thought the Cardinals getting Will Johnson in the 2nd round was just an absolute steal. I think that is going to be a really good bargain pick. As long as he heals and he can come back and be healthy, this is a top 10 talent
That's
in
a
this
shot.
draft. And he fell. That's a shutdown corner, and he fell to the 2nd round. If you don't think that's going to pay dividends for a team that was on the cusp of really turning it around, I think the Cardinals are a team to watch out for next year. If this team can develop into what they want, if Kyler Murray can be competent at quarterback, I think this defense is going to be good enough to keep them in any ball game, and they just have to score. But to me that was my, hey, this guy is an absolute steal to get in the 2nd round.
Looking at it, just a couple, and it's funny we're sticking with, or I'm going to stick with the quarterbacks. I'm telling you, and some people had this guy up there with some as high as Hugo. I think Tyler Shuck's going to be an NFL starter. I really do. Him going to the Saints is a perfect situation. I personally, we've seen how Derek Carr has panned out. And
Isn't he older than Derek Carr?
He might be, honestly. But, and then I was never high on Spencer Rattler. I guess he had – so there's competition there in New Orleans for Tyler Shuck to – and you talked about – it's kind of the same story with Dylan Gabriel. Tyler Shuck kind of bounced around and then had a really good year at Louisville in his final year. I'm biased, but because I'm an Ohio State fan, but I love the Patriots taking TreVeyon Henderson. What he did in terms of pass protection with blitz pickups, with everything and then for him to kind of be that compliment with Quinshon Judkins last year. I watched a ton of Ohio State football, obviously.
And the Browns getting Judkins again behind that line, man.
Yeah, I was a fan of that pick too, and the fact that they went, Quinshon Judkins went with a 36th pick and TreVeyon just 2 picks later.
As Will knows, I am not a fan of picking running backs in the top 10, but here in this point, that's a great draft pick for both of those teams.
Yeah. I'm going to stay in the AFC North with Detroit, or excuse me, Pittsburgh's. I guess this would be day 3. I would like to mention, I think Jack Sawyer is going to be an excellent NFL player. I think his motor and his drive, his relentless pursuit of the football, and his ability to set the edge is going to make him a really good kind of rotational player, probably his first couple years with Highsmith and Watt. But I think he's going to really solidify himself as a good NFL linebacker / edge.
I'm biased, but I tend to agree with you. Like I said, there was 14 players out of Ohio State drafted, which, I wasn't expecting that. Obviously, they won the national championship, so they have a ton of talent. I wasn't expecting that many. I'm a big fan and I'm a big Cam Scadaboo fan. I just am. That kid, he busted his ass at Arizona State and basically kept them in that game against Texas in the college football playoff. Him going to the Giants, I know they have Tyrone Tracy, but it's one of those things. He can compete for maybe a backup role right away. Then we don't wish upon injury upon any guy, but he could be one of those guys. If an injury happens, what he's gonna give you. I mean, he's a hard nosed runner. It takes basically all 11 guys to bring him down. So I was a really big fan of that pick. I mean, then another one that I was looking at, I believe it was the second round, if I'm refreshing right, let's see here, was it in the third round? The Falcons taking, I believe, Xavier Watts.
Mm.
They needed secondary help, and Notre Dame's defense was no joke last year, and Xavier Watts was one of the quarterbacks of that defense. So, I mean, Falcons got themselves a stud in Xavier Watts, I think. So those are just a couple more from me.
Good draft for the Falcons. Speaking of Ohio State, the Colts' second-round draft pick was another edge. It's a position of need for sure for the Colts. The only issue I have is that Chris Ballard's opinion of defensive ends is definitely doesn't impress me. So, but JT Tuimoloau, how do you say that?
Tuimoloau. It's a mouthful.
Tuimoloau. Okay,
we call him. You can call him JTT.
JTT. What do we think of that pick to the Colts?
Yeah. I hate it. I think it's awful. I think it's just a why. Go get it. Go get Xavier Watts. Go get Julian Blackmon out of Indianapolis. He's not the center fielder I want. Go get I just talked about the fact that the Cardinals got Will Johnson. Go get Will Johnson. Go get an elite outside corner. This JTT, he ain't helping this team win an AFC South next year. No, rookie pass rushers never come in the league and are worth anything. And this was, I would have much rather gone a position that I actually feel confident that Chris Ballard can competently analyze. And then we just continue to fall into this trap of, hey, let's just draft an edge for shits and gigs and hope you throw shit at the wall long enough, hopefully it'll stick. And this is just a shot in the dark.
Hopefully it'll stick.
Yeah, I hate this. I hate this pick. I hated it when they did it. I don't like anything about
it. Fair point. I mean, obviously I love the player. I can definitely understand you hating the pick. I mean, because last year the Colts secondary, we all know how piss poor it was.
Well, it's already upgraded this year a ton. So I'm not even sure that's a position of need. I think they've got 4 quality defensive backs. Of course, one of those is a 5th defensive back. So you could definitely upgrade, and I don't understand why you passed on Will Johnson.
Okay, why pass on Will Johnson and then take a corner in the third round?
Makes no sense.
It makes 0 sense. And this is the shit that's going to get him fired. This is the stuff that's going to get him fired. Because he left an excellent corner on the board for Arizona to pluck, and he drafted a subpar. He drafted a stretch edge. I would say JTT. I would not have probably had him in my board as a second round guy. I would have probably had him early third. And just why pass up on an elite corner to get a okay corner in the third round?
My thing with Will Johnson, he went to that team up north, which I'm not allowed to say their name. The injury concerns are with him. I mean, he is a man, and I don't know exactly. I'm not, as far as schemes and everything goes. I don't think the Colts play a ton of mans. That's Will Johnson's specialty. When he kind of had to turn his back to the quarterback, that's when he got beat a couple times. But when he's got his eyes on the quarterback and can see the ball, he's a sniper out there in terms of he can jump in front of a pass and take it the opposite way. The talent is there. It's just a matter of scheme fit. So I don't. And then he missed all of, I think, a good 3/4 of last year with an injury, with multiple injuries actually, and there was another injury he might have had right before the draft. So why teams were maybe kind of hesitant on him, and that's probably why he fell. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if Chris Ballard felt that way, but that's just having seen Will Johnson a little bit and knowing him. That's just my 2 cents on him.
I think if we're going to talk about winners and losers team wise of the draft, I think you've got to look to the NFC North, and I thought the Packers had a great draft again, putting more pieces around already what's going to be a really good team. I thought the Lions had an elite draft as well, really filling some positions of need with some really nice players. And the Bears, they seem to be run competently now. And they put all the things around Caleb Williams that he needs, assuming Trapilo and Burden are the players that they think they are. They're the Bears, so who knows. But also to get Colston Loveland and then Shamar Turner dropping down to the 30th pick, a guy who is expected to be taken 18th or so, defensive tackle from Texas A&M. And going offense 1, 2, and 3 is exactly what the Bears need to do to ensure that their quarterback is successful. And you guys see any teams that maybe made a move in a positive direction over the weekend?
My only thing with Chicago was I don't follow the Bears a ton, but I mean, you have a tight, unless you want to go a 2 tight end set. Cole Kmet's not bad.
They want an elite tight end, and Cole Kmet is not an elite tight end.
I get that. But the problem is with going offense with Luther Burden, you already have DJ Moore, you already have Odunze. That's getting a little too many mouths to feed on that offense, which I guess that's a good problem to have. But it's one of those things that's like, okay, who's going to get a bulk of the carries or a bulk of the touches? I mean, so you're right, Greg, with Caleb Williams does have the options are basically unlimited for Caleb Williams right now. But big question is how is he going to keep everybody happy? Maybe DJ Moore
and the offensive line is much better, especially if Trapilo is as good as they think he is.
As much as it pains me because of who their coach is, I do like what the Chargers did with taking Amarian Hampton and Trey Harris in the first 2. I mean, Amarian Hampton is basically Jim Harbaugh is going to love him. He was one of the I think he was an underrated player at North Carolina and underrated, and people weren't maybe giving him the value that he deserved. Those were the Chargers. Just one of those teams that kind of stood out to me too.
I've got one team, the Ravens. I thought they had a really good draft. I think they always have a really good draft. They hit all their needs. They're going to be just set. The rich just continue to get richer. That's my one team.
Mike Green at the end of the second round is a perfect Raven. Also, we got to point out the Eagles as well. They just continue to nail drafts as well. Especially
Malachi Starks is the perfect Baltimore Raven.
Yes, he is.
Seems
even
like.
Sounds like a Raven.
I think that
go ahead.
Positionally is going to free up Kyle Hamilton to go out in the deep safety role. I loved it. I said it on draft night. I loved that Starks pick. I just think this. I just have so much faith every time this Ravens team. If they take a player, even if you think the player's maybe graded a little lower, I just have faith that Baltimore is going to develop and figure him out.
Did anything over the weekend change how you see the top of the NFL in 2025?
I mean, I thought the rich got richer a little bit with Kansas City. Once again, before we go back to this Ohio State thing with me, Josh Simmons, if he didn't get hurt, would have been a top 10 pick in my opinion. If he got hurt, missed like 3/4 of the year. And that was part of the whole offensive line shuffle at Ohio State. Then they get another Ashton Gialetti. I think he can be a very good edge rusher for them. Chiefs just always seem to find good edge rushers. in the third, fourth round of the draft. So I hate to see the Chiefs, continue to bulk up, but their draft, they're going to be well coached under Andy Reid, and he's going to get those guys ready. So as much, I don't think a ton's going to change, at the top, because all the good teams, like we talked about Baltimore, Philly, Kansas City, all had good drafts. So I don't think it changes a ton. Yeah, so that's my just quick answer, because the great teams do great things, or the great teams do great things well. And the Chiefs, the Eagles, the
Ravens,
Ravens, a couple of other teams like that, they have good front offices, they have great coaches, and there's a reason they're well-established franchises and contending for Super Bowls. And it's because it starts, they know how to build an organization, how to build a team. Don't think it changes a whole lot. Maybe we'll see. I could always be wrong. There could be a team that come out and surprises me, but I don't think much changed as far as, a team that makes that jump into the next tier, I guess, elite tier that can maybe compete with those guys.
My only team that I really think got better enough to where I think they really jumped a tier is the Cardinals. I think they're going to win the NFC West next year, and I think they're going to. I think they are. I don't know if they're winning a Super Bowl. I doubt it, but I think that they're going to be a team that can compete and does and overachieves next year. Probably where they're going to be.
the one I want to point out is the Atlanta Falcons. I think they got a lot better.
Yep.
Jalen Walker could be a fantastic linebacker. James Pierce, if he works out, is an elite talent. Xavier Watts, again, you pointed out that earlier, Cody, and even Jack Nelson, 7th round tackle. Anytime you get a 7th round tackle out of Wisconsin, they always seem to work. But the other thing that I'll say is that I think that this further cements to me that the Super Bowl is the Ravens and Packers.
Those are probably two of the NFC or both of the championship week teams. I think it comes down a lot to just how the cookie crumbles and the ball bounces.
Yeah.
When these teams are this good at, one ball bouncing one way for another team is the difference in the outcome. I don't think that analysis is off, but I think those are two good teams. Those are they're in two of the top 6 teams, I think.
Golden's got a chance to be. Green Bay has some quality wide receivers and a lot of young wide receivers, and Golden has got a chance to go on and make an impact day one. I loved him when he was at Texas, and the good old saying is you can't teach speed, and that kid has it. He can burn probably any secondary he wants. He had some catching problem. There's a couple of drop passes, but if he fixes that, Green Bay's given Jordan Love some weapons, and my God, they finally drafted an offensive player in the first round.
Please stay tuned for Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader Sports Editor Michelle Garman with her thoughts on the
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengel.
All right, Michelle, already did this with Will and Codey Emerson, but the story of the draft, without question, was Shaddeur Sanders. You texted about it a lot in our group. Go ahead and give me your opinion.
All right. Well, actually, I think there were 2 stories of the draft. One was Shaddeur, and the other was ESPN and Mel Kiper's coverage that totally ignored the number 1 overall pick of the draft, Cam Ward, whom most people thought would go number 1 overall.
No, everybody knew would go number 1 overall.
Yeah, except Mel Kiper.
Yeah.
So.
But
anyway,
that's why, Michelle, that's why my coverage of the NFL draft is always on the NFL Network.
Oh, me too.
I watch every time.
It's just like I tweeted that I texted to everybody in that group the other night. I think Mel Kiper's the most overrated guy out there. He's a blowhard. He thinks he knows. And then the way he went off on NFL executives, I'm sure he didn't earn himself any points. I personally, if I'm the NFL Network, I tell ESPN they're never doing the draft live again. If they're going to be biased. But anyway, Shaddeur Sanders, it is. Here's what I think. I said this the other night, and I've seen some people agree. I've seen some people think it's stupid. But I do firmly believe the fact that Shaddeur has never played for anyone but his dad. The fact is, he didn't throw at the combine. That's not a big deal because there are other quarterbacks that don't throw at the combine. But the fact is, he didn't play in either the Senior Bowl or player practice with the Shrine Bowl. And that would have been a perfect opportunity for him to go and spend a week under the tutelage of someone other than his dad. So people could see how he adapted and if get feels about how coachable he is, because you don't know because he's only played for his dad.
All right, Michelle, I'm going to be repeating myself for everybody who's out there listening right now, but I want to get your opinion on this. I understand all of that. I do, up to the third round. But when the third round came along, there had to be some thinking that maybe he's not even a good football player, because if you think he's a good football player in the third round, you take a guy who's a talent, and even if he's hard to work with because of the potential. And so there had to be some thinking he's just not that good.
I think that's it. I also think this.
And I disagree with that.
Here's what I think. Well, I don't think he is. I don't think he can be an NFL starter in this year or next year.
That's okay. I don't expect him to be this year or next year.
Dion tried to plan this to where his son was going to be one of the top two quarterbacks in the quarterback draft class. He wouldn't have been last year, and he wouldn't be next year. And I think, he did not, when you listen, I'm not sure he conducted himself. And I still say this.
Yeah, that's what everyone's saying. And again, I understand all of that in the first 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds.
But to this point, the kid doesn't need the money.
No, I understand all that. I just don't understand why a lot of franchises didn't go, hey, this kid's talented.
Because they had other needs.
But in the fourth round,
the ones that really need quarterbacks,
Michelle, in the fourth round, most of those guys don't even make NFL rosters.
He went to the fifth round. You're
wrong. I know, that's what I'm saying.
You're wrong. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant.
I'm saying most players.
Tom Brady, who most consider the GOAT, 6th round draft choice.
Most fourth-round draft picks statistically never play an NFL game. And below.
Now, here's what I'm concerned is, here's the thing. Trey Wingo said it best, and some other people. Quit making this. I mean, we aren't talking about some other quarterbacks that had more, their numbers were as good or impressive, and their wins were bigger and better than Shaddeur's in college. And they fell.
None of those have Deion Sanders genes.
But he's not. You don't understand. None of his sons are as athletic or even as close to as athletic as their dad.
But athleticism wasn't the only thing that made Deion great.
But Deion is not. Greg, most of the time, sons can, if their sons, if their dads are outstanding, they can't follow in those footsteps.
I understand all of that, but you take a chance with a guy with those genetics, man.
No, not necessarily. Not if you have other needs and you like some of the guys that were falling to you. If they were higher on your draft board, you're taking them.
Okay.
I'm not going to necessarily take a flyer because here, like I said, let's see. This may be the best thing. I do think this, and it could have been the NFL also sending a message to this new generation coming out. All this
good point.
Entitlement is not enough. We don't care for entitlement.
Good point.
And here's the thing. We also have to understand, you have to be able to go into the locker room and be a leader. What nobody's saying is, would it not be interesting to find out if these coaches, this general managers, talk to some of the veterans on their teams to get their take on how they perceived Dion would be in their locker room? Now, I don't think publicly any of them were going to, because of Dion Sanders.
But no one has ever said, that Shaddeur Sanders is a problem in a locker room. Ever.
No, but you're not going to. Why would you?
No, because he's not.
Because for them, like
Because
in
he's
college,
not.
Dion's their coach, and he could be. And in the NFL, brand ways, I mean, there's ways to go about it. I mean, if you got to think about it.
You're labeling this kid a bad kid, and he's not.
Especially if you're. I don't mean this mean, but if you're not.
You're labeling this kid a bad kid, and he is
NFL
not.
Veteran, and you say that, they're going to perceive your comments to be racist, whether or not they're true.
You're labeling.
That's the one thing I think I got out of this, that I hated it. All those guys are saying, well, he fell because he's black. Well, hey, your number one overall draft pick was a black quarterback.
Yeah, it's stupid. But that's not his fault that people are saying that. He wasn't saying that.
No, but you know what? I don't know if you want a guy that has thrown
You're
his
labeling.
own
You were
out
just.
of the Boston post-game press conference. Do you want him in your locker room? Here's the thing.
Right.
I don't think, and Dion, and like, even for some of those coaches, he can't come in and say, but do you want that? I mean,
yes, I want Deion Sanders in my locker room, no matter.
Who do you think Deion Sanders is going to put the blame on his door?
I don't know what you think these two guys are, but they're very good guys. They are not like you are making them out to be. They are not like this.
No. I mean, no, but Dion does have to carry weight. If you've listened to some of the things he has said, and I think that also has bothered some people. I mean, but if you're a coach, do you want, because, I mean, very rarely has Dion ever criticized his son. Rumors are, I mean, reports came out from Colorado, Shaddeur got to be late to some meetings. They showed, there's video of him walking off the field with 2 minutes remaining in the game. He's a college quarterback, not injured.
Yeah. Yep. And all that stuff, I understand, into the third round, but he's too talented, too good at what he does to not take in the third or fourth.
Well, not necessarily, because guess what you've done now? By putting him in the fifth round, you're going to find out exactly everything you want to know about Deion Sanders Jr.
And I want to say this, that everything I know is that he is a great kid.
Well, let's see if he is willing to put in the work, be humble, and go prove himself.
Yep,
now,
he's going to get a chance to do that for sure.
By Cleveland.
The other the worst case scenario almost.
Yeah, I mean, there's we talked the other night. I think there's 2 or 3 franchises in the NFL that if I'm a quarterback,
I'd just say no. Yeah, exactly.
And Cleveland is one of them.
Yeah. The Jets are another one. I was saying on the Colts report once that I understand why the Jets would want a quarterback. I don't understand why a quarterback would want to go to the Jets.
And I will say this. I'm wondering, I think that the reason the Steelers, because everybody thought the Steelers might take him. But I get
why they don't like his arrogance. I get it.
Yeah, but I think this is for the Steelers. I think part of this was this way. I think they think there's a real good Aaron Rodgers is going to come and play for them for a year.
He's definitely going to.
Right, but he's probably not going to play much. Might not play more than a year.
He's either going to play for the Steelers this year or no one.
Right, and he's probably only going to play.
Yes.
Possibly, too, if he would have a great year.
If things went really well, yes.
So, now, the question is, if they're not similar quarterbacks, to come in and for him to learn under or to mentor behind, then it's probably not what you want to do.
Their games are similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but I think Will Howard will be a better study under Aaron Rodgers than Deion Sanders Jr.
I understand why teams
And
stayed
I'm
away
not
from.
I'm not saying Will Howard will have a better NFL career.
I understand why some teams stayed away from him. I don't understand why they all did. Anyway, I did not want to take 10 minutes talking about Deion Sanders Jr.
Like I said, I hope for the kid. I hope it works out well. But I also know this: when you were one other thing, and then I'll leave Deion Sanders Jr. alone. When you look at all of the clips from his games, the celebrations afterwards, he had his own 3-man video crew on the field at all times. I mean, I don't even know how they got on somewheres to film all of that, and then they were there in the draft room. I mean, really?
Yes,
3 men? I mean,
Deion allowed his son to get away with some things. It's been happening through the history of football. You're right. But I hope he wins 9 Super Bowls. But that's not going to happen with the Browns.
No.
So, all right.
I will say this. I think that I'll go to the Colts. I think that Chris Ballard may have had one of his best drafts ever. Now,
we'll see.
I look at this as I don't say that's necessarily a win-win situation for the Colts, because if with this draft and they come out and they make the playoffs, it means Ballard's gonna get to stay around. And I really just don't think he's done a good enough job through the years. I just think the Colts are better off moving on.
This draft isn't good enough either. I don't think.
But and part of it is I think he did a good job in a draft. But we talked this the other night. I don't know how to. I mean, I don't know how many immediate impact players were in this draft.
Well, and he got lucky that a position of need, an obvious position of need because of him, fell into their laps at number 14, a guy who was a top 7 or 8 talent.
Right. Well, and really his next 2 picks were pretty good too.
We'll see. We'll see.
Now the thing is, he drafted another edge.
Exactly.
Which we know he's not done well.
Yeah. If he drafts him, I assume he's no good.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I was looking. I haven't looked through the draft grades for all of the teams.
Well, Michelle, let me tell you mine. Let me tell you mine real fast. There are 5 teams I think made huge moves in the draft, and the good news is the Packers are one of them. The bad news is the other ones are the Bears, the Lions, and the Ravens, and I think the Atlanta Falcons pretty much cemented themselves as the favorites in that division as well. So, and the Eagles had a really good draft as well. So that's the bad news for the Packers.
Well, and the Bills draft wasn't that bad.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, what I think the Bills did is they got what they needed.
Yeah, if those guys are good. Yeah, if those guys are good.
Well, but I don't know. I mean, some of those guys they have coming back. I mean, some of those guys were injured, so they may have some guys coming back. So this just provides depth.
It could be, yeah.
You
and
know,
Josh Allen is too good not to build a great team around.
Right, and defense was their last year. I mean, I think what they wanted was secondary because, I mean, you look at it in the AFC, you have to beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
And Andy Reid is so good at scheming things. He doesn't necessarily have to have stud receivers.
No.
He has a way of getting guys open.
As I've said about 1,000 times, if you have Andy Reid and you have Patrick Mahomes, you have a chance.
Yes.
Because they're both that good at what they do.
Yes.
2 of the best 5 of all time.
The Chiefs had a decent draft.
Yeah, maybe. They're really good at evaluating talent, so I trust them to make draft picks for sure.
Yeah,
I don't think Buffalo's done a good enough job putting a team around Josh Allen because I believe he might be even better than Patrick Mahomes, but his teams haven't been good enough.
Right. Well, I think they should have put more offensive weapons around them. But yes. I will say I do know they by drafting some of that secondary, that they just got so depleted there last year.
Yeah, their guys got old.
Yeah, and injured, and I mean, I think,
Old.
yeah,
If
but
they just
younger
let them
too.
go. Yeah.
I mean, because I think they're as they entered the playoffs, I don't even know that they had maybe had one starter returning, but I think there were a couple games that they
No,
didn't
I was
have a
talking
guy who
about
started.
the offense, the off season the year before when they got
Oh,
rid of all their safeties because they
yeah,
were
yes,
and they had been so good for so long for Buffalo, and they just got rid of both of them because they both got old at the same time, and they've been
yeah,
trying to replace them ever since, and they have not done a good enough job.
no. You know what's? Oh, and I will say this. I'm going to touch on this. I thought it was great to see Jack Kaiser get drafted.
Nice, yeah, by the Jaguars, who seem to have a pretty good draft themselves.
Yeah, a Mr. Indiana Mr. Football. He's a tiny pioneer to multiple Class A state championships as being Mr. Everything, a starting quarterback, and then a
And he'll be
defense man having a nice career at Notre Dame.
I think he'll have a good impact.
Yes. I mean, just his experience and his leadership. He's a good young man.
Boy, the Packers front office knows what it's doing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They had a really good weekend.
I thought so. I mean, getting Golden, he seems to really want to be there. He's, I'm anxious to see if he lives up, because I know a lot of people gave Packers an A grade for that draft pick. It was nice to see him go get a wide receiver in the first round. Then, they took a wide receiver later, and everybody goes, I don't know why they took this guy. And I'm like, I do. He's flat out fast. They're thinking return game with him. I mean, that's
yes.
Because that's what the Packers do. If they can find a good wide receiver that can return, and that's what they would rather do, and they weren't able to do that quite last year.
And the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds are not as much about filling holes as finding gems.
Yes.
The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds are about filling holes.
Yes.
So,
I like you said, I think that if you were looking at divisions, which division nailed the draft the best? Probably the NFC North.
No doubt about it. And I think that division might have 4 playoff teams next year. It's that good.
Very well could if people stay healthy.
Yeah, if the Bears are as good as they might be. I don't think that they are, but they might be.
Yeah. Now here's you want to talk about a team that may be so receiver rich. It's going to be interesting to see what the Bears do.
Yeah,
because
it is.
They drafted some good receivers, and they have good receivers.
Yeah, I'm going to guess if this receiver, if they really think that he's the goods, that DJ Moore will be available.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
That would be my guess too.
And they'll go with the young core, but DJ Moore is awfully good. Yeah, DJ Moore is awfully good.
Yeah. It's and I also want to give a shout out. It was great to see IU see CJ West and then Curtis Rourke both get
first time in 8 years.
So.
Yeah, first time in 8 years that they've had 2 players taken in the draft. So that was cool.
And next year I think they'll have more.
I believe you're right.
But CJ West could end up being a he could end up possibly battling for the Rookie of the Year.
I mean, the 49ers
are DTs to get it, but he is a DT who can get to the quarterback.
And the 49ers know what they're looking for at those positions and have been very successful with the outside positions at defensive end, outside linebacker, corner.
Well, and even defensive tackle, because he'll play inside.
Yeah, that's right. And I was going to say, and defensive tackle. So good that they've traded all-pro guys because they've had so much success drafting defensive tackles.
Yes, and I mean, he's a 3-down guy. He's got a high motor. Watching him and Kamara.
And how about How about the Beck kid from who the Raiders took, whose brother was killed in the terrorist attack in New Orleans with him there? Was taken in the third round. Very cool story there. And he looks like he's going to be a good one for the Raiders, who might have had a great draft too. I just don't think that you take running backs that high. That's all.
They're the ones that took Deontay, right?
Yes. And by the way, I think that in the second round, the Patriots and Browns got maybe better value with the Ohio State running backs than the Raiders got with Genty in the first round.
Well, we'll see. Genty's got some other things that he can do. I mean, he's just when you read, I think I think people really liked him too because he turned down money to transfer from Boise State. He believed in loyalty. He believed in staying with the team that believed in him out of high school. So
I understand that all that. I just don't think he's built for the NFL. I'm not 100% sure that he's built for the NFL, and that to me is a reason.
I think he's a Jonathan Taylor type back.
Well, then
Jonathan,
then that's not worth the 6th pick in the draft. If Jonathan Taylor wasn't worth the 6th pick in the draft, he would have been worth.
If you're trying to build a run-first team, which I think
he would be if you had a 20th. You drop back in the first round.
Now,
it's just not worth it that high.
But I think here's the thing. I think the reason he was taken this high, again, Greg, we've talked about it. The lack of just star talent up there. And I think the Raiders didn't think they could go back that far and that he would still be there.
I'll say the 2 Ohio State backs have better careers than Genty does.
No, we'll see. I don't know that the Judkins kid will.
All right. Anything else?
I was trying to think here. It was. I know there were some players that fell other than Shaddeur. And surprised.
Will Johnson. Will Johnson went to the Cardinals in the third round, or late second round.
Yeah, I heard. I think that concerns with him were is he going to be is he really going to be 100% healthy when training camp's open?
And he probably won't be, but he's still a shutdown corner in waiting.
Right. But taking him at the third round,
yeah.
If you really need that's okay because as he's fallen, and I'm sure there were teams that said I'm going to trade back up if he's still there at a certain point. So, but I think that. I don't know that you'll have a big impact this year, but I think you'll have a big impact next year.
Yeah, and I think that Cardinals team has a really nice future. They've really put together a nice roster.
They have.
Yeah. And that division is up for the taking, at least for this year. It seems that some aging teams out there, and they seem like the young and up and coming team, and they've got a really good offensive line coach.
Yes, they do have a very good offensive line coach. Hails from Elwood, Indiana.
That is correct. On the
Elwood
great
Panther, former Indiana Hoosier.
On the great 2012 Elwood Panthers football team.
Coach some really good, outstanding linemen at Boston College, UCLA, and Ohio State.
Coached him to a national championship is what he did.
Yeah, he helped.
Yes, he did. All right, Michelle, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for helping entertain me on my weekly drive from headquarters in Jeffersonville to Stage 22 in Elwood. And, man, what is the NBA doing to us, Michelle? 9:30 start for the Pacers.
I don't know. I guess we'll talk about Pacers tomorrow.
You want to do it tonight?
If you want to after it's over, that's fine.
All right,
I'll leave it up to you to call me.
Well, I definitely want someone to do it.
I will. If you call me, if I don't hear from you, then I'll know that you maybe fell asleep in our.
No, I will not be falling asleep during a Pacers playoff game.
All right. Then feel free to call me.
All right, will do.
All right.
I might have someone else. I'm going to try to see if anybody else wants to do it. So.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, thanks, Michelle.
All right, thank you, Greg. Have a safe travels.
Thanks, bye.
All right, bye.